Yo, what's up? This is Joshua Casper. Welcome to a quick Ableton Live tip, and this is on finding the key and tuning percussion or synth hits or anything you want. We can find the key, we can put it in a sampler and make sure it's tuned and ready to go, so when we get into making our track, we don't have to worry about it. The main point here, though, is finding the key of percussion or finding the key of a synth hit that isn't properly labeled already. So as you can see here, I've got the snare inside of the sampler down here, and if I play that, pretty sweet snare. I really like it. I want to use it for my project, but it just sounds like noise to me. I'm not a trained musician, and even some musician friends might not know it just because it sounds so raspy. But there is a note inside of there, and it's called the fundamental note, which is what you're going to want to tune to fit into the key of your track. So the way we find that is inside of the audio effects. There's something called spectrum. We drive that behind the sample there, and then we hit this little arrow to make it nice and big up here. And then as I'm moving around on this grid, if you look at this little orange box, it shows me the frequency, and it also says the note and which note along the entire spectrum it is. So A2, C0, you know what I mean? Or this what, A-2, sorry, C0, and then if you go all the way up to the top, it's D#8 over here. So when we trigger this sample, it's going to show us the spectrum up here, and we're going to look for the tallest, strongest peak that shows up, and that's going to be the fundamental note. So let's go ahead and trigger this sample and see what the spectrum shows us. So if you look right here, this is the highest, strongest peak right here, and if I hover over that, it says E2. So this snare is hitting at an E2 on the music scale, and that's very important. And the cool thing about sampler is that we can change the root key to what the actual root key is now that we've discovered it's an E2. So I'm going to come down here and just bring this down to an E2. And now whenever I use the sampler with this clip inside of it, I can play that clip anywhere along this the spectrum here and know that it's hitting right on time or right in key. So the actual key is E2. So I'm going to go ahead and play that now. It's on E2. It went from C3, which is the default note value, to E2. And if I play it, let's just make sure that it's going to show me another E inside of the spectrum here. Cool, it's still E2. Now, if I want to change that, I can change it now by going up to, say, a G or an A2. If I come into the spectrum and now hit it and come over here to where it is, you'll see that that is in fact now hitting at an A2. So we've now tuned our snare and we know what the tune is, and now all we need to do is adjust the MIDI to fit to the key of our track. That's pretty cool. So I want to just show you quickly that this works with anything. I've got this D attack bass, which is from a sample pack that tells me it's hitting on a D, and let's just make sure using Spectrum that it is in fact hitting on a D, just so we know that this method works. So this is where the highest peak is, and as a fact it is, it's on D1. What I'd want to do again is change this root key to D1. Cool. And now if I'm still going to leave it on C3 here, you'll hear a higher pitched bass sound. And that should be hitting on a C3, and if you come into the spectrum, look at that, it's hitting on a C3. So that's how you go about finding the tune or the note of any percussive elements, or even any samples that aren't properly labeled. Or maybe you're just recording your voice and you want to know what frequency or what note your voice is hitting on. It's just a really cool trick to know. It's very useful, especially if you're going to be setting up samplers and things like this with percussion and stuff like that. Because even though some people will tell you percussion doesn't need to be tuned, it really does, and it makes just a whole lot of difference if everything is in key when you're making your track. So anyway, I hope that helped, and we'll see you next time. Peace.